Many of us become familiar with the term hotboxing in high school. You find a closed space, eliminate airflow, and smoke weed. For me, well, I had a general fear of both drugs and authority, so my friend Aaron and I tried the next best thing. We would take nighttime drives and buy gas station cigars, 32-ounce sodas, and roll the windows up in my 1995 blue Corolla. Now I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I think of that as a safe alternative to smoking marijuana? I'll tell you. Because after about 30 minutes of inhaling cigar smoke, you get a slight head buzz, followed by a really twisted feeling of nausea. See, on these long drives through the countryside of Ohio, Aaron and I would talk. We would philosophize on things we knew nothing about. We would talk about our family problems, hopes for the future, and tell all the dumb jokes teenage boys could tell. We created a space where we were free to be vulnerable and be ourselves. That simple tradition planted a seed. Okay, fast forward to 2013. I'm 22, living in Denver, 1,200 miles away from my friends and family in Ohio. My sister calls. She says, "Danny, Mom's in the hospital, unconscious, in a coma. She overdosed. Thankfully, she survived." And what this did is it forced our family to share space, to face the uncomfortable reality we had chosen to look past, to see our mom for who she was, someone suffering from depression. And nothing brings people together like the truth. So many conversations and therapy sessions to understand our mom, to understand ourselves, to understand each other. And through that healing process, with the help of a dear friend, I founded a community called Soul Stories. A community dedicated to sharing vulnerably, having difficult conversations, and connecting through each other's narratives. It was my way of taking control back in my life, of creating the space Aaron and I once created in the blue Corolla. And now, Soul Stories is an LLC, and we have multiple teams working on monthly dialogues and special storytelling events that tackle topics like sexual consent and scientific communication. We have a podcast. We're working in schools and looking to expand to businesses. And over the last 5 years of its growth, it has taught me over and over again, if we are going to talk about vulnerabilities, social issues, and these topics that can be so difficult to engage, it begins with the space within the self, between friends and family, and within our communities. And by space, I mean these three elements. One, the social norms that dictate our interactions. At each event, we go over the purpose for the conversation and talk about specific guidelines such as respecting each other, speaking from personal experience. Two, the tools we have to communicate. Storytelling can be an incredibly powerful tool to start a conversation from and relate with empathy. Curiosity. Asking a question can be the best way to diffuse uncomfortable feelings within yourself, truly learn about another. And mirroring. The simple act of restating what someone has just said to you allows them to see themselves. And if they want, they can go deeper. And finally, safety. the safety we feel with each other, and most importantly, the safety we feel in ourselves. Safe spaces tend to get a bad rap these days. And safety is not preventing yourself from taking risks. Feeling safe and secure in yourself is exactly what gives you the courage to take the risks. And this is a practice that has led me to some important moments. Like the time there was this too cool, too tough bro character who truly annoyed me. Until we got into a story-sharing circle together. In it, he opened up about his history with drugs and the challenges he had to overcome just to be alive today. And afterwards, he came up to me and thanked our team for the space we created. I felt like the asshole, forgetting that each of us experiences pain. Or how, during the Kavanaugh hearings, I began to ask questions to friends. And woman after woman had a story. It humbled me, pushed me to consider my position in the world differently. Or how, when I talk with my dad, and he makes comments about Trump, tax cuts, or denouncing Obamacare, things quickly escalate. And once one of us had the clarity to say, I disagree with you, but I can see where you're coming from. Or, tell me more about your perspective. Things deflate, and we begin to listen. The other day, after a heated conversation, he even asked me to send him some research on climate change. We'll see what happens there. And then there was the time I made comments that led my girlfriend and I to break up. And a friend I had confided in cared enough about me to point out the misogyny in these comments. I reacted. Me, misogynistic. I founded Soul Stories. I had to take space and ask myself the question, what's true here? Over the next several months, through introspection and feedback from my friends, I was able to recognize and begin to work on a side of myself I had refused to acknowledge. And then there was the time I was facilitating a small group and formed a connection with a man who was later comfortable making bigoted comments, expressing his anger and hopelessness towards his changing neighborhood. I challenged him. I pointed out what was wrong with what he was saying. He didn't listen. I then focused on his feelings, not the content, saying, I hear your anger. He softened. He then continued to say he feels forgotten about by his community because he's a senior. The broad scope of emotion and perspective that can exist and be shared with a well-crafted dialogue is incredible. The fear and anger, the playfulness, the joy, the rawness, and the uncertainty is what makes showing up and being real with people worth it. Soul Stories has truly been a blessing in my life, and a small step up from hotboxing cigars in the blue Corolla. Over the last several years, my dad has developed a saying, seek the truth, a phrase that reminds me why he is an inspiration for the work I do. And when I reflect on this, I think, which truth, and who does it belong to? And that's my challenge to you all, whether in the workplace, your community, or your family. Do you hold space for people to be authentic and honest? Do you have space to be honest with yourself? And I mean honest to the point of potential conflict and discomfort, where your perspective can be transformed, where there is mutual respect, appreciation, and trust. Because this is where we will find how to move past the issues that divide us. This is where we will find meaningful collaboration and connection. This is where we will find truth. Thank you.